Let's speak to Fadi Nicholas Nassar, Director of the Lebanon Program at the Middle East Institute, who is in Beirut right now. You were also there when these attacks were taking place. Could you describe some of the reaction, given the scale of this attack, when that was happening?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. The explosion of thousands of Hezbollah operatives' pagers marks a serious escalation, raising the risk of a wider war. These blasts across Lebanon and Syria certainly highlight a serious security breach, possibly even infiltration into Hezbollah and Iran's supply chain. Yesterday, Beirut and southern Lebanon were thrown into chaos, with nonstop ambulance sirens really echoing the widespread distress in the country. Thousands are reportedly injured, including high-profile figures like the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon. A number of casualties have also been reported, including the death of a son of a Hezbollah minister of parliament. With hundreds in critical condition, the total number of casualties is expected to rise. It was a long, uneasy night in Lebanon, with growing fear that the conflict that so far has largely remained localized is now spiraling out of control and can no longer be contained.
And Fadi, given some of the people who've been injured connected to Hezbollah, as well as Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, what reaction are we hearing from Hezbollah as well as Iran?
Look, this is the most significant intelligence breach since the start of the conflict. And once again, I would say it signals Israel's escalatory dominance. In Lebanon, questions will start to emerge. If Hezbollah cannot protect itself, how can it claim to safeguard Lebanon? And if it has failed to deter Israel, as it continues to claim it has its opening of a limited front in support of Hamas, despite the widespread aspirations of the Lebanese people to avoid war, set them down such a ruinous path? As deterrence wanes, it often emboldens adversaries. If Israel remains undeterred, we could see a more assertive approach, potentially escalating or broadening its conflict with Hezbollah.
And Fadi, could you remind us of some of the context here as well? Because there has been a lot of cross-border attacks between Lebanon and Israel throughout this war. So could you give us some of that context to understand some of the escalation you're talking about there?
It's a great question, and to help contextualize things, ever since October last year, when Hezbollah opened a limited front in support of its ally Hamas, Israel, Hezbollah, and to a wider extent, Iran, have been fighting in a tense struggle over the balance of power and the rules of engagement that have defined this conflict since 2006. Now, this mass attack, which comes on the heels of the assassination of a top Hezbollah military leader in Beirut earlier this summer, does mark a major escalation. I would stress it shows that for Israel, there's no going back to October 6th. The massive scale of the attack, with 1,000 injured and scenes of widespread chaos, again powerfully challenges Hezbollah's claim that their response to the Israeli assassination had in fact restored deterrence.
All right, Fadi Nicholas Nassar, Director of the Lebanon Program at the Middle East Institute, thank you for that analysis.